Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Chris, and today I'm going to give you a glimpse inside 2 entry-level projects. Sorry for the voice, been under the weather this week, but like they say, the show must go on. So in this week's video, we're going to turn 2 tools on a lathe, or 2 projects if you will. One being a top, and the second being a handle for this branding iron right here. So guys, thank you so much for joining me for this one, and let's see how we get it done. Well, I've been wanting one of these branding irons for quite a while now, and finally I got in touch with a machinist named Tony Rouleau. More about him and what he does later in the video. As I go through my pile here of free hardwoods that I got from the hardwood dealer, and yes, I did say that right, they are free. I got a video that I made a few months ago, it's linked down below on how we did it. I'm essentially cutting this piece of maple down to a blank that's going to be ready to turn on the lathe to make the handle for the branding iron. What I do is I find centers on both sides, tap in the headstock, set everything up, adjust the tailstock to the same center line, and we're ready to turn. A huge shout out to my wife. She got me this lathe for my birthday. Wasn't sure if I was going to get into this wood turning thing, so she went ahead and picked up the Harbor Freight variety, and honestly guys, this thing has worked out great so far. I don't see any problems with it, and for entry-level wood turners, this is a perfect way to get started. You can see here that I'm trimming this piece down to fit that copper pipe over the front of the tool. This is going to prevent the wood from splitting and also give me a nice decorative element. Now honestly guys, as I whittle this material down, I'm just kind of winging the shape of this thing. I have no plans on what I'm doing. All I know is I need something thinner on the inside and thicker at the base and at the head of the tool. So once I like what I see and I like how it feels, it's good to go. We're going to go ahead and move on to sanding now. We're going to go from 150 grit all the way up to 600 grit. And then we put a couple of decorative elements in it. You're going to see that just in a second, and we're going to polish it up. I chose to get the final diameter for this copper piece with some sandpaper. Doing that lets me sneak up on it and gives me a nice fit. I sand the inside of that copper collar, put a little CA glue on the wood handle, and join them together. And now back to the lathe for a final sanding, a final polishing as well. I go ahead and take this tool here and I go ahead and burn in a couple lines on the front and back of this tool handle. That's looking pretty nice in my opinion, and now it's time for some finish. I go ahead and hand finish this thing with some tung oil, and then I give it a nice friction polish with a paper towel, and we're good to go. You can see just how nice that friction polish works. We're going to cut this thing out of here, and we're going to take it over to the disc sander to give it its final sanding. You can sand this off by hand, but I choose to use a disc sander to make quick work of finishing both sides of this tool. I go ahead and polish off the base of the tool, and then I go ahead and sand off all the material right up to that copper pipe on the front of the tool. Now it's time to drill a hole right in the center, and I take this center finding gauge here, if you will. There we go. And I realize at this point that why am I doing this by hand? This is something I need to take over to the drill press, and I go ahead and wisen up, and as you can see here, finally I got my wits about me and took a Forstner bit, the same size diameter as the actual branding iron, and I'm going to go ahead and epoxy some of that with some 5-minute epoxy right into that hole, giving me a nice, secure, and permanent fit. And now it's time to test it. So as you can see here, I'm just burning this with a propane torch. I think about 30 seconds go by and I realize it's not quite there. I burn it for about another 10 seconds and perfection. This thing works so well. Tony, thank you so much. I'm gonna zoom in here and let you get a good glimpse at the detail of this thing. Beautiful, great work. Now on to a little bit more of a whimsical or fun project, if you will. Some of the cutoffs I had from making that handle, these are maple cutoffs as well. I'm gonna go ahead and take these and put them on the screw chuck, and we're gonna turn some spinning tops. The screw chuck is just a wood screw that's coming through the center of a piece of plywood that's then screwed on to the headstock of the lathe. It might seem a little precarious, but this process is tried and true and it's pretty safe for what we're doing here. So once I get it down to a cylinder, I take my tool rest and I move it more towards the front of the actual piece, and I trim out what is to be the very tip of the top. You can see there, turning out pretty nice. Now the rest of this is go ahead and hollowing out the inner part for where the handle is going to be. And again, I don't have any plans here. I'm just taking away material until I like what I see. Now as you remove material, of course you got to be careful not to remove too much. You don't want this thing to come flying off and breaking off. So once you get it to where you think it might be just right, go ahead and stop with the lathe tools and bring out the sandpaper. Again, we're going to go from 150 to 600. And I realize I have a little bit of chip out there, so I take some more sandpaper and try to get that out, kind of burn some rings in the top and bottom of that front piece. And again, with the friction polish, this stuff is awesome. As I part this thing off with a skew chisel, I try to take my other hand and support it and try to catch it as it, well, that didn't happen. No lie, that thing landed behind me and rolled 30 feet down my driveway. Well, after trimming this thing off the lathe, I need to take it over to the disc sander to do some final touches. I go ahead and put a 45-degree angle bevel on the tip of the handle of this, and now it's time to test this thing out. And it works. Now, I went ahead and made a few different variations of this. This one I made a really wide, thick base. This one I colored with a few Sharpies, and the one I just made works upside down. Check that out. Also, Baltic birch plywood was an experiment I tried, and it works with that as well. Well guys, there you have it. 2 simple projects that you could turn in an afternoon. I want to thank 3 people on this project build. 1 being my wife. Thank you so much for the gift. What a thoughtful thing. You know I'm a woodworker and you know I've been wanting to get into wood turning. Thank you so much, baby. Also, I want to thank Tony Rouleau. This guy is the gentleman that made this brand. Now, unfortunately, he's not making brands anymore, but he's got an Etsy store that has some unbelievable brass and metal and wood squares, hand planes. It's awesome. Check his link down below. And another person I want to thank in this video is a gentleman by the name of Robbie. Now, Robbie means a lot to me. Who is Robbie? Well, I'll tell you. I don't advertise very often, or if I even have, I don't think on this channel that I have a Patreon. But I link it down below in my videos, but I don't necessarily bring a call to action. Robbie's my first patron, and Robbie, thank you so much. He saw what we did here at this channel, and he liked it, and he wants to help support us. So I'm going to put a link down below to our Patreon account. I'm also going to put a link here to invite you to subscribe if you like what we're doing, and there's going to be a few more videos over here as well. Guys, thanks again for watching. My name is Chris. This has been A Glimpse Inside, and we'll see you next time.